guys, welcome to some Sunday grounding. Not only are we missing being around other people, but Sam is missing it too. So he's been kind of going a little stir crazy, even with all of the exercises and stuff that we do. He has been missing his group people, and he's been missing interacting with people. So I got him ready today, put his vest on, and he's going to do a little bit of Pet Partners help today. So I also wanted to go over a little bit of psychoeducation today as our grounding, because that can be very helpful to ground us to facts and ground us to exactly what's going on. So I got a lot of this information from Mark Stednicki and his Disaster Mental Health book, and then Christine Sanderson. She does a really good trauma book as well. But I know many of you have kind of chronic illness or chronic fatigue or other things that may be going, chronic anxiety, something that's always happening. And what we're in right now is a natural disaster. It's actually a biological disaster. And it's very interesting to find that label, but that's what it is. We're in the middle of a biological disaster. So it's kind of a lot to take in, but in that, there are people that have already been through trauma and that working through trauma, and those of you have chronic illness disability. So that is an actual thing, CID. And psychosocial stressors, such as what we're going through right now, keep you in a state of hyperarousal, meaning that it's very difficult for you to come down. You may have been using tools before this that have helped you to ground or to be able to come down, but now because of this extra stressor, the psychosocial stressor of the pandemic, of the virus, of all of the factors that go into that, you may be getting back into your constant state of hyperarousal. So everything around you, think doors slamming again, are causing you to jump, that sort of thing. And so this additional exposure, it increases the stress. It increases the oxidative stress inside of your body, because not only is it mentally increasing, but it's also taking a toll on your body, causing inflammation. And I know that this sounds scary. I don't want this to sound scary. I want this to be educational and enlightening, because I believe that truth is important. I believe that God gives us truth, and He allows us to understand truth so that we can see things and bring things down into perspective and ground ourselves. So in turn, we completely can have faith in Him and knowing that He is in control. He responds to their stress differently. A lot of times we say we could put things into categories, but even though we put things into categories, everybody responds to stress in a specific way, because based on your past experiences, based on how you see things. So coping strategies. What are coping strategies that we subconsciously use, that our body uses to make sense of situations, and that subconsciously copes with stress? So the first coping strategy, and some of these are negative and positive. Again, they're subconscious. It's the way that your body is making sense of the situation. But the first one is denial. And denial being that the situation is too overwhelming, and so putting it off to the side. It's really not as bad as it is. It's really not as bad at all. It's not touching me. It's not going to get to me. So there's the denial, and that, is a protective thing. And then there's regression. And this one was kind of scary for me, just because I have done so much work, and I know I have talked to some of you, and some of you have done so much work, and you have the same feeling of like, am I going to regress back before I did my work? And that may happen, but you have also been made aware and taught your coping skills. So even though you regress, you know how to get yourself out. Before, when you weren't taught, when you didn't know your coping skills, when you didn't have your toolbox, you didn't know what to do, so you were kind of stuck there. But the regression part, it may go back to your default, back to an earlier stage of your progression, an earlier stage of what you had been going through, an earlier stage of your trauma. The next coping strategy is compensation, and compensation is used to counterbalance the stress or your incapacity in some aspect. Like in chronic illness disability and CID, it's kind of more focused on, say you had chronic fatigue syndrome, and so you couldn't walk to your mailbox, or fibromyalgia, that sort of thing. And so compensation in that area would be having somebody get your mail for you, or it would be you getting stronger in another area, like learning how to do Zoom on the computer and getting more educated in that area while you're waiting for your body to catch up. So that's another coping skill, is the compensation. Yeah, you're weaker in one area, but you start to get stronger in another area, so compensating for that. And then the next coping skill is rationalization. And rationalization can be kind of a negative one, because when you rationalize, you can begin to find socially acceptable reasons for your negative behavior. So rationalizing the fear, rationalizing staying in the fear. And you can find a socially acceptable reason for that and say, well, everybody else is saying this and that and this and that. Everybody else is sitting in that fear and staying there, and it's getting overwhelming. So there's the rationalization. There's other rationalizations too, but that's specific to kind of what is going on right now. And then our last one is the diversion of feelings towards, and the diversion of feelings would be kind of the anxiety, the helplessness, the overwhelmingness. And instead of recognizing it and processing through it, diverting it into frustration, anger, shortness, like towards loved ones, towards family members, towards friends, or towards yourself, turning it inwards. So those are some of the coping strategies that, if you recognize those in yourself, know that this is very normal, but also recognize that this is what your body is doing, so time to pull out your toolbox and move forward. And regain your control. So how do we regain this control of the out-of-control world? And like I said, grounding. Grounding is a wonderful way to regain your control, because it puts you in the driver's seat. So we ground through smell. You find like last week we used the candle, or we used flowers. You ground through the smell, bringing yourself back. You ground through images. You can look around and find something that is soothing and ground through that. Or you can close your eyes and take yourself into Yosemite, or take yourself into Sequoia National Park, or take yourself, again, this is what works for you. These are just what worked for me. And then a grounding phrase. Like, my grounding phrase will be different than your grounding phrase, but finding that phrase that's looping in your head, not the negative one, but the positive one that you're always using to bring yourself out. And mine is, I'm okay. I may not feel like I'm okay, and that's okay. So I'm constantly telling myself that, giving my permission of, yeah, things may be bad, but that's okay. You may be thinking the bad, but that's okay because of what's going on around. So finding that grounding phrase, giving yourself permission, and then finding a grounding body position. It may be seated in a chair. It may be mountain pose. I don't think the camera will get all of me, but we'll do mountain pose in our yoga sometime this week, and it's where we stand up nice and tall, standing on our feet, opening our chest, our palms are facing out. I'll do it right here. I'll probably get cut off on the top. But we're standing, shoulders are back, palms are out, chest is open, head is to the sky. Again, this is like the Little Mermaid on the rock. Everything is open, everything is flexed, you're pressing into your feet. And this is mountain pose. This is a strong and immovable pose, form. So that is a good grounding form. And then grounding hobbies. So when I went through a difficult time of fatigue and kind of, I went through a couple of months where I could not get out of bed. I was having a lot of, like, again, the fatigue, the tiredness in my mind, the tiredness in my body. So what I did, my grounding hobby, was I did a giant cross stitch, a giant Michael Kincaid cross stitch. And then I also did a giant puzzle. And those two things grounded me. They got me through the times when my mind couldn't think on bigger things and my body couldn't do bigger things. And actually the cross stitch, it's huge. My mom has it framed, and it's just a reminder of even though I was in one of the lowest times in my life, I was still able to do something that was amazing. And it helped my mind, and it helped me move through things. So finding a grounding hobby, and then keeping your hands busy. We've got that, I forgot to bring it out here, but the putty, what is it, Aaron's putty, you can get it on Amazon, and it's thinking putty, that's what it's called. And you're just moving it in your hands, or there are thinking toys that you can use, little things to keep your hands moving.
So here is the thinking putty. It's like silly putty, and it's the, Crazy Aaron thinking putty. And then this is another grounding, like, little toy. You can look these things up too. Just playing with this as you're sitting down. Maybe it helps with dissociation, stuff like that. So these are, you can look these up on the internet, and there's all kinds of things. Something may work better for you, but this is just examples.
One of my favorite prophets is Elijah, and I've always been very drawn to his story because of, essentially, you guys, he has mental illness. Like, he gets depression, he gets all of this stuff. So in 1 Kings 19, he has just been empowered by God to kill 450 prophets of Baal, okay? Like, but here's the thing, was he had this huge adrenal, blast. He was praying, God was using him, that sort of thing, and all this stuff happened, and then all of a sudden it's done, and Jezebel tells her people to go kill him, and he hears about this, and he's broken right now, and he's exhausted because of all of the adrenaline that he expended. So I was like, he was the original adrenal fatigue. And so he runs to the desert, and I don't know how many of you have felt that, but I have, in times of tiredness, in times of fatigue, in times of anxiety or depression. Sometimes it's like running to the desert. There's nothing else. I don't know what else to do. And so he ran to the desert, and he lays under a broom tree. And what was God's answer to this? So any disaster professional or any first responder to any disaster will tell you that you don't focus on getting them mental health right there. You don't focus on counseling them right at that moment. You focus on their basic needs. And so for Elijah, he was underneath that broom tree. He was exhausted. He was broken, and his body was exhausted. His mind was exhausted. And what did God do? God brought his basic needs. He cared for his basic needs. He brought an angel who made bread and gave him water. And then Elijah slept again. So God shows us that those basic needs, the food, the water, the sleep, those are the things that encourage us, that build us up for what needs to come. So with his basic needs met, Elijah was eventually able to cope with the coming stressor of running from Jezebel, of doing his job, and to continue the work that God had for him. So I think that is one of the best illustrations of self-care, because God actually shows us that after a natural disaster, after a biological disaster, is about tending to the basic needs so that when things get back to normal, you have the strength to process through that. You have the strength to move through it, and you have the strength to stay with where you need to be. So you are worthy of having your basic needs met. You are worthy of becoming strong and balanced so that you can face the stressors that are currently going on, but also remembering to keep strong during this time through your basic needs, through eating right, through drinking water, through getting enough sleep. These basic things, these essential things are so important for you to be strong to face your stressors, making sure that your body stays strong, making sure that your mind stays strong. Like I said, through the psychoeducation, making sure that your spirit stays strong by seeking after God and allowing him to take care of your basic needs, to pour into you. And it's simply, you can ask him. Like, I think that's one of the hardest things that I've ever learned, is to simply ask, I need help, Lord. And he will show you. He will show you ways. You are worthy to be strong and balanced and to face your stressors. And remember, this may be reaching out to a friend. It may be reaching out to your therapist. It may be reaching out to your counselor. It may be reaching out to your psychiatrist. It may be reaching out and looking up a safe and skilled therapist or counselor, making sure it's a licensed professional, looking up somebody that can help. And there's so much telehealth out there now, so much cyber counseling. And there are ways of making it safe. So I encourage you today, as we become educated, as the education pushes aside fear, and as you learn that God really, he wants to provide for your basic needs at this moment, so that you can, in the future, move past these, not maybe move past, but move through your stressors, move through the things that may face you in the future with strength and with hope and with mental strength, with physical strength, with spiritual strength. All right, find your grounding today. Maybe do your grounding practice that you've been working on. And thank you for joining me, and we'll see you guys later. Bye. There we go. And Sammy says, goodbye. Just giving you extended puppy love, extended pet partners therapy dog love. All right, bye guys. Ready? Let's go. Come on, pups.